Welcome to Murder and Everything Else. My name is Joy.
And my name is Cheryl, and Joy and I are two very old friends who are going to talk about murder and everything else.
Welcome back, everyone, to Murder and Everything Else. You know, Cheryl, it is allergy season here in the great state of North Carolina, and I'm sure it's allergy season in many other states in this large country that we live in. So, for those of you that suffer from seasonal allergies, and here we have pine pollen that's just a mess. It coats everything with a yellow dust. We have to have our house power washed. We have to wash our cars, and because it's just it comes in the house on the animals, it gets on the furniture. Anyway, for those of you who suffer from seasonal allergies, you know what it means? It means that every time I sneeze, I pee my pants.
I did not see where this was going. I thought you were going to
Literally.
give like some great advice on what to do when you have seasonal
No. Yeah.
allergies.
Yeah. Here's my great advice. Wash your chonies. Keep a good big stack handy because some days you're changing those things like 12 times. It's unreal. Wear a liner. Somebody needs to design a panty liner that just hovers. I don't know. That maybe it hovers because if you think about it, not everybody is gonna like. What if you're wearing like nylons and or tights and like a skirt and slacks or whatever? Some people are not gonna wear a ton of like items, so they need to invent that. So I'm putting that out there. If you can invent a hovering panty liner, that would be great. Or the other thing they need to design is some kind of undergarment that's extra absorbent that soaks in liquid and wicks it away to I don't know where so that you don't have to keep changing your clothes because it's gotten so crazy. I mean, I'm surprised we don't have drop cloths all over the house,
You could wear a pull-up.
I guess. But for those of you listening who are women over a certain age, and I don't care if you've had kids or not, women over a certain age know that there's something that happens when you sneeze. And if you sneeze while you're squatting down, like getting something out of the bottom of the fridge or the freezer, it's all over. That pelvic floor is gone. So, anywho, if you are suffering from allergy season and stress incontinence, which basically means you spend the entire months of March, April, May with wet underwear, wet pants, wet shorts, wet skirts, wet whatever. Um, well, guess what? I'm part of the club.
So welcome to the club.
Welcome to the club. Anyway, welcome back. We have received multiple compliments, multiple. And
Ooh.
that is regarding the sound of your voice, Cheryl.
Oh, what?
Yeah, so I am putting it out there. Guys, those of you listening, subscribers, non subscribers, people who stumbled on this drunk in the middle of the night, don't you think that Cheryl has a great sounding voice? I think that you should do voiceover work or read books on tape or narrate commercials or something like that. So, any listeners out there that have strong connections to the voiceover community or the books on tape community, reach out and let us know so that we can hook Cheryl up in that industry.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Joy.
Cheryl, do you have any updates for our listeners?
Well, last episode, I had mentioned that Mr. Orenthal James Simpson had died, and I forgot to mention if you're not keeping up with, what's going on with OJ and that whole world, he had many people come to his bedside and he made them as well as the hospital staff all sign NDAs, non-disclosure agreements. So that was kind of juicy. Oh, no pun intended. Because didn't they call him the juice? They called him the juice.
Yeah.
The juice is on the loose. Someone said when he was in his Bronco on that slow speed
Oh
chase.
my God, that's
And
hilarious.
and so now I'm down a rabbit hole watching all the new stuff that has come up. Kato Kalin has been on a lot of things. And so, yeah, I'm just soaking it all up. I followed every minute of the trial. I've watched everything, every special that's been out there. But anyway, yeah, he made them sign NDAs. So that's very interesting. Although I don't think he made a deathbed confession. I don't. I think
You
he
don't.
no, I think he took it to his grave. He probably didn't want people talking about the condition he was in and whatnot, because he had an ego. Or he just wanted to keep it private, and I respect that. But I don't think he would make a deathbed confession. But I am surprised that they were able to keep it under such tight because there was nothing in the news that said he was. I didn't even know he had cancer. Um, but the fact that it wasn't leaked to the press is pretty impressive. Um, I hadn't heard anything about him, and then just that he died. So anyway, that's just the update I wanted to give in case anybody's not
So
listening to updates on O.J. Simpson.
it's so interesting. Um, Cheryl, I don't really have any additional updates to add to that other than I've been listening to some of our past episodes and I realize that I say a lot. And so I am going to make a concerted effort to not say so much.
Oh, I didn't realize that. I didn't
Yeah.
notice it.
Yeah. I'm going to start counting the ums. You
All
heard it
right.
here first. Heading on into shout outs. I have a shout out today to people who know how to change car tires. Do you know how? Do you know how to change a car tire?
No, but back in the 80s when I was a young adult living in Los Angeles, my mom hand wrote uh instructions, step 1, step all the way. She just wrote out how to change a tire, which I wish I had that note still, but I used to keep it in my glove compartment. No, the way that I change tire is I get on the phone and I call AAA.
Okay. Well, I do not know how to do this, but my husband does. And I just want to tell you, uh, apparently he taught the girls now how to do it out of necessity because we had a situation where a kid went over a curb and punctured the tire, heard the popping sound, but kept driving until the car started pulling to the side, which
Oh
is an
gosh.
indication. And then when they pulled over, they realized that the tire was completely shredded. So,
Oh,
anyway, he showed up and changed the tire. So, shout out to people who know how to change tires. He did tell the girls that he taught me. See, there was an he taught me and I did not pay attention. So, I believe I believe
no, not you. You not paying attention? No way.
I know, right? Um, there's another and shout out also to house cleaners everywhere. I talked a little earlier about it being allergy season and spring, but house cleaners right now should all get raises. If you have not given your house cleaner a raise, here's a news flash. You should give them one all the time. Give them a livable wage because if you do, it improves their lives and improves your life because they come in and clean the pollen off of your sofa and your chairs and your carpets and your windowsills and your animals. So there. And
Yeah.
also, karma is a bitch. So if you don't raise their pay and you're paying them miserable wages, they're going to come in your house, be miserable, and do a miserable job. So you heard that here first, too. Cheryl, you have any shout outs?
I do. And you're right. Karma is a bitch because I was shit talking someone the other day and then I was carrying Callie to the mailbox and I didn't see that the sidewalk that I went off the sidewalk and I fell and she tumbled out of my arms. And now she has an
Oh,
injured, it's either her left hip or her lower back. But anyway, my shout out is to the vet that I go to. They have just been so wonderful to me. I've been going there for about 3 years. And 2.5 of them were um, treating Callie with subcutaneous fluids for her renal failure. And then I've been to the vet almost every day this week because she was just screaming out in pain. And I just want to give a shout out to them because their customer service was beyond excellent. They I didn't have to ask for anything. They just saw that I was in a lot of pain, emotional pain, and the lobby was very, very busy. And I they were taking me on an emergency, you know, case. And so, but yeah, it was really nice. The receptionist found me. She just saw that I was in distress. I mean, it wasn't like I was boohooing. I wasn't trying to draw attention to my. I think that's what happened was she saw that I was struggling. That I didn't want to
mhm.
people to be looking at me, but I was like crying. So she took me into a room and then the tech brought Kelly out. They squeezed me in. So I was in no, I was like, you guys take as long as you want. I mean, that's what I'm thinking because they squeezed me in. So she's like, the doctor, we did the blood test and x-ray, but the doctor still has to look at it. So I thought I'd bring Kelly out to be with you instead of in the kennel, just like little things that meant, I mean, it made me feel like I was being
Important.
taken care of. I was
It
being
makes
taken
you
care
feel
of.
important, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and that they considered my feelings, yeah, anyway, shout out to Arizona Animal Wellness Center.
Aw. Well, I'm glad that you are both on the mend. I'm sure all our listeners are glad that the two of you are on the mend. And oh, please be careful. I always say when we start falling, it's bad news. I've almost fallen several times, but I catch myself. And yeah,
Yeah.
I just know that falling, I mean, it's very easy as we get older to lose our equilibrium, to lose our balance. I was walking down the driveway one day and the next thing I realize I'm laying flat on my face in my driveway.
Mm. Oh my God.
And my landscaper made a joke and said it's because I was day drinking. But I'm here to tell you, I was stone cold sober.
No, it's yeah, and it's yeah, it's horrible. And it's really sad. You get to an age where it really is dangerous. I mean, any fall could be dangerous at any age, but when you get to a certain age, it's not good.
Yeah. Anyway, we're going to move on into letters from our listeners segment. We have a letter from Spotify. For those of you who don't know, you can go to Spotify and it'll say, "What do you think of this episode?" And we'll get um and we can publish the comments that you leave. We have from 5 days ago a comment from Eunice. Like I said, one of our regular 4 listeners, she says, "I'm with joy. Teeth are a picture of a person's self-hygiene." So thank you, Eunice. And for those of you who are dying to know what she was posting about, we talked about personal hygiene in episode 15 about idioms that came out on April 14th. So go back and listen to the episode about idioms. And the second letter from our listener was from number 2 of our regular 4 listeners, and that was Amy, super fan. And she said, "I'm listening to the podcast and I hear happier than crabs in your underpants." And she said, "I almost drove off the road laughing." Anyway,
Happier than
Amy,
crabs in your underpants. I love
I
it.
mean, it made my day that she reached out to tell us that that was super funny. And also, Amy posted she wanted to know when I was going to start my stand-up tour. And I thought that was so funny. I was like, well, the good news is when I plan the stand-up tour, I have that one joke about the crabs in the underpants. So I'm going to have to build a lot more jokes around that. Anyway, Cheryl, wouldn't it be so exciting? We've talked about this before to do like a smart list tour where it's just you and me in a sofa.
Yes, that would be so fun.
Oh my God. You know what? I literally was thinking about it after I got this text from Amy, and I was planning what I was going to wear.
What shoes? What shoes
Yeah.
you're gonna take
No,
on the road?
the whole thing, the outfit and the shoes. I mean,
Oh my God.
it's so exciting. Anyway, thank you, Amy and Eunice, two of our
Thank you.
regular four listeners. We
So fun.
appreciate you reaching out. And we don't care if you reach out every freaking 5 days or every 3 days. We'll still read your letters on our podcast. Well, guys, this week we are taking a detour off of murder. Like, literally, this couldn't be the furthest thing from murder. And what we're going to do is talk a little bit about the everything else. And this week, the everything else we're going to be talking about is hobbies. So,
All right.
anyhow, a hobby, the dictionary definition, Webster's definition of a hobby is an activity done regularly in one's leisure time for pleasure. And the example that Webster's gives is her hobbies are reading and gardening. So,
Hmm.
I am a huge, huge fan of hobbies. For those of you that don't know, I have a very long list of hobbies. At least I think I do for me. But one of the things that I have discovered as I get older and meet people is not a lot of people have hobbies. So I looked up a list of hobbies for women or men or anyone, maybe not children under a certain age, but there was an extensive list. So I'm going to just read off a few. And the list is sewing, writing, dance, which is something that you did, gardening, photography, which I feel like with people have phones, anybody can get into photography nowadays. You know, my phone on my camera is the highest powered phone camera I've ever
Camera.
had.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, it takes sometimes I'll take a picture and I'll look at it and go, "Holy shit, that's the best picture I've ever taken."
Yeah. I like, well, you have an Android. I don't know if you have this, but on an iPhone, I love doing the portrait where it gives like this blur around the subject that you're photographing. It's really cool. But anyway, okay,
Well,
photography.
one of the things I've discovered is I really don't know the features on my phone. I just click
That's
and then
awesome.
yeah, that's it. Anyway, another one is brewing. So like brewing beer or spirits of some sort, painting, cooking, interior design, jewelry making. Remember we did jewelry making at one of your birthdays?
Thanks to my
That was
friend
fun.
Priscilla.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
was fun. But I don't have that jewelry anymore, or at least I don't know what happened to it.
that's all right. That was a
Um,
long time ago.
it was winemaking, beekeeping. I gotta be honest, when I ran across the beekeeping, I was like, all I could think about is like running away from a hive with like a Winnie the Pooh kind of like swarm of bees chasing me through the yard. I mean,
Same. That's what I picture when
yeah,
I think of beekeeping. That's how I picture you.
right. Hiking or exercise, genealogy, which actually was one of the hobbies that my mom had,
Oh,
travel,
interesting.
which is a hobby that my friend Jill has, and then playing a musical instrument, which is another hobby that I have. And I'll cover the long list of hobbies that I have later on. Um,
You know
So
what's so sad, Joy? I have to just interject and say I am very, very embarrassed, but I'm going to be completely transparent because in my old age, I have no shame as far as telling people what I'm embarrassed about, which is I do none of these. Okay,
no
there.
shame. Listen, no shame in a hobby game. Girl, I got you covered. I actually have you covered. Later on, we're going to talk about like people who think they have no hobbies and how to start a new hobby or how to turn something that you have interest in into a hobby. So I got you covered because a lot of people who work 40, 50, 60 plus hours a week and have family or have animals or have things they have to do will say at the end of the day, I'm exhausted. I don't have time for hobbies. So I get it. Like life is busy, life comes at us hard. Sometimes we're just like stuck in the grind. But anyway, how do hobbies benefit people? So I looked up that researchers say hobbies such as arts and crafts, games, gardening, volunteering, or participating in clubs involve creativity, sensory engagement, self expression, relaxation, and cognitive stimulation, which are linked to good mental health and well being. So if you think that a hobby is just going to take up time and cost you money, just know that having hobbies is linked to good mental health and well being. And who doesn't want good mental health and well being? And I'll just interject right here that one of the hobbies that I have, well, it started as crocheting, but then I realized I was a really shitty crocheter, really, really shitty. I mean, nothing I made was recognizable except maybe that blanket that I made for you that I was trying to make a scarf, but I think it turned into a blanket. But I then turned to knitting, and it turns out I'm actually a decent knitter. So,
Oh,
yeah, so sometimes you'll start a hobby, like sometimes people will start cooking and realize they hate cooking or they're no good at it, and it'll morph into something like baking. And they'll find that they enjoy baking and they're actually good at it.
huh.
So I started crocheting to quit smoking. I had been smoking for some years and I wanted to quit. And I had met my husband. We wanted to start a family. But the hard time for me was between the hours of after dinner. So like 7:30, 8 o'clock at that time, because, we would stay up much later. We didn't have kids, etc. And, and 10 or 11 o'clock or midnight when I would go to bed, those were the hours when I would get home, relax, put on my what I like to call my squishy pants, and go out on the porch and have a cocktail and some cigarettes. And
Uh-huh.
even though I got it down to 3 or 4 cigarettes in an evening, letting go of that kind of relaxation time was really hard. Also,
Yeah.
remember, we didn't have smartphones back then, so we couldn't just sit and scroll mindlessly for hours.
Right, right.
So I would head outside and smoke. So keeping my hands busy while I kept my mind busy was something that I needed to do. So I started crocheting and then it morphed, like I said, into knitting. So
You know,
it was
I
not
don't
just
know
good
if
for
you
my
I
mental
don't know
health,
if
it was good for my physical health. Sorry, go
I
ahead.
didn't I don't know. No, I don't know if I knew that. That you started smoking. I mean, you started crocheting to kick your smoking. I don't know if
You
I
know,
never
you
knew
know what would be awesome if I start smoking to kick my crocheting habit.
that. No.
I did, and you know what? I'm here to tell you that I no longer smoke, so something worked. So
Awesome.
I'm glad that I started crocheting and then it turned into knitting. Although I will
Yeah.
say that knitting can be a very expensive habit. Yarn is expensive. The needles I use are bamboo. They can be expensive, and all the tchotchkes can be expensive. And then I also am really into buying books on knitting, which can also be expensive. So, as
Um,
far as looking for a really cheap hobby, knitting is not one of them.
I never
Um,
thought it was wow, that's interesting. I did not think it was a expensive hobby.
oh, yeah.
I
There's some
see.
yarn
What do
shops
I
for
know?
those of you listening. for the 4 of you listening who enjoy knitting, if you go, like, there's some of these high-end yarn shops, Cheryl, where one ball of yarn, which might make a sock, can sometimes cost upwards of $40.
Oh, wow.
So remember, 2 socks, because they come in pairs, that's $80 socks. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's yeah.
And then you figure, like, for example, guys, I'm really bad. I have 2 pairs of socks sitting here. One is for my cousin Lisa, the other one is for Cheryl. They're sitting here. One, Cheryl's heading to summer, so she's not going to need them till fall or winter. And number 2, I've just been really like bogged down with other stuff, so I haven't sent them. It probably took me 20 hours to make those socks, Cheryl. So you divide
Wow.
out, yeah, you figure out, let's say minimum wage, $15 an hour, roughly, times the cost of the supplies to make it. Those are, I mean, that's like $200, $300 pair of socks you're getting. So I
Oh my
just want,
God, I'm not gonna want to wear them.
yeah, you're going to have to put them in like a picture frame and
Frame. Yeah, I'm gonna
hang,
have to frame, or
hang that shit on the wall.
yeah, I'm gonna frame it and hang it on the wall, or I'm gonna use it around my rear view mirror in my car as decoration.
Ooh, yeah. Or maybe what you could do is like sew them into a dress or something and like wear them, hang them off the front of a dress, and you could put your keys in them so it could be like a pocket.
I'll make a fanny pack. I'll sew it to a belt, and then I'll use it as a fanny pack.
Next thing I'm going to talk about are the benefits of having a hobby or hobbying. The first thing that came up, that's number 1, is stress relief. And you know what I was going to say, Cheryl? What I do in the morning after I shower and clean out the cat box and give the dogs their treat and clean up the kitchen and get my youngest child out the door to school and start the laundry and blah, 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 all the stuff you do in the morning before you leave to go to work, is I leave a half an hour every morning so that I can sit down at the table and knit.
Mm,
And you know why? Because it grounds me and it relaxes me and it allows me to, it's kind of like a form of self meditation. I
mm,
just zen out and I knit, because remember, knitting is repetitive motion. So it's no different than like doing scales on a piano, or because you're doing the same, I'm doing the same stitch over and over and over and over. So it just helps to ground me every morning before I head out the door to work. So the stress relief thing is good. If you find a hobby and it's creating a lot of stress, that's not a hobby. You need to get rid of that.
Oh, see, that's what I was going to say, is that I have arthritis in my hand. So anything that involves fine motor skills with my hands is going to be stressful for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And some people as they age have to let go of certain hobbies because they're no longer able to do them. So I totally understand, but there are cool hobbies that you can do that don't require repetitive motion, like knitting or crocheting. The second
What?
thing, yeah,
I
listen,
couldn't do that. You need fine motor skills. That's where I have a problem.
no, not for every hobby. You don't.
Oh,
So
I
I'm
thought
going
you
to
said like
read.
fine.
No, I'm going to read a list later on. Anyway, another benefit is hobbies can provide a healthy outlet to release tension and clear your mind, which I just talked about. Also, hobbies give your confidence a boost because you suddenly become the subject matter expert on something that other people don't know how to do. Like, for example, I always ask you questions about dancing, because I'm a really shitty dancer, even though I love to dance, and you used to be a really, really good dancer. And so remember when I used to be obsessed with spotting, which by the way has nothing to do with my underwear again. It has to do with when you like, remember you said you pick a point on like a wall or something, and every time you turn, you go back to that spot so you don't get dizzy and fall over, because I would dance in circles and get dizzy and fall down.
And then how did you learn that? Because I didn't teach you that. You asked me one day and I was really
I
surprised
oh,
that you knew
I
about
didn't learn how to do it. I just learned what kept you from
it, what it
falling down.
was.
I still would
Oh,
get dizzy and fall down. Because when I would
Okay.
practice it, I would find that I really didn't know what I was doing. But still, I mean, you are a subject matter expert on dancing, all things dancing. So it does give your
Well,
confidence a
not
boost.
all things. This is true.
Yeah. Um, the next thing is learning something new and gaining new experiences can help you develop a sense of self-confidence. I already said that. Creativity. Spending more time on hobbies can give you the mental space to focus on your feelings, allowing you to reawaken your creativity. And the next thing is social skills. Hobbies can help you bond with others and create a social life. Boredom reduction. They can give you something to do when you find yourself with nothing to fill your time. New skills. Hobbies help you develop new skills. A knowledge increase. They can enrich your life and give you a different perspective. And productivity. They can promote eustress, which
Hmm.
is the positive kind of stress, which in turn makes you productive. And I will just
Is
say,
that a made up word? Is that a
no,
made up word?
no, eustress. It is the positive
Mhm,
kind of stress. Anyway,
mhm.
the pandemic also was really good for hobbies. I don't know if you remember ever reading about bread making becoming like this big thing where everybody had like sourdough starter and everyone was making homemade bread because you could order all the supplies online. You could make your starter at home. You could stay home and socially distance while working on the craft of making bread. And the pandemic was really good for other hobbies because people could go to YouTube, look up instructions on how to make beer, how to make wine, how to start painting, how to re I don't know, spackle the bathroom, how to retile something. So and a lot of people had time off during the pandemic.
Yeah, well, a lot of people had a lot of time off.
And Cheryl. And the other thing is a lot of people got a stimulus check, so they had extra money to spend on shit that they were going to stop touching when the pandemic was over.
$40 balls of yarn.
That's right. Anyway, why is it important to choose a hobby? It enriches your life and gives you a different perspective on things. No matter what type of hobby you choose, you will definitely be exposed to new ideas. Hobbies will help you grow in various ways, including exposing you to new opinions and to new ways to look at life, and it challenges you.
Mhm.
Yeah. So here, this part is for you, Cheryl, and the what we're going to cover is how can I find a hobby that I enjoy? The cool thing about a hobby is that you can start a hobby at any stage of your life. So the experts online say you need to revisit activities you loved when you were young, um, such as drawing pictures, putting together a model kit, collecting things, or building clay figures. Doing so is a really helpful place to start and it allows you to feel comfortable. Childhood delights can easily evolve into adult hobbies. You know, I was going to tell you that doll collecting is a hobby and they make these real live dolls that I think they're called real life dolls and they are the weight of a newborn baby. They are the size of a newborn baby and they I don't know if they have beans in them or corn or whatever, but they're pretty heavy and they fit wearing newborn clothing and newborn diapers. And a lot of people they use them for therapy, but also people with disabilities and people who are doll hobbyists will have these babies and they treat them like babies. Like they'll get them up, they'll dress them, they'll feed them, they'll change their diapers. um
These
Now,
are adults?
yeah, if you had told me that this was a thing 20 years ago, I would have like backed out of the room. But I have to say that because collecting things like Legos and collecting things like movies and collecting things like spoons and stamps are all hobbies, why wouldn't you collect dolls? Like you can collect anything. I mean, if you want to, you can collect dirty socks.
Yeah, but I can understand collecting them, but then treating them like they're real. What? Hold on. One sec. As far as I feel like a hobby is something that you should be doing, not
Well, you
just
do.
acquiring.
You play you that's the other thing is basically doing your hobby is the adult form of playing if you think about it. So when you were a child and you played with dolls, that was a childish behavior. But as an adult, if you interact with your dolls, like changing them, pretending you're feeding them, changing their clothes, giving them a bath, propping them up instead of having them sleep in their crib, this is all adult hobbying. It's no longer called playing, it's called hobbying. And the cool
Oh,
thing is there's so many different kinds of hobbies out there.
okay. Well, if anybody is doing this doll playing, please write in.
That's right. I am dying. And also, just so you know, I found people on TikTok who record themselves interacting with these
They're
true
dolls.
life,
Oh my
yeah, the
gosh.
true life dolls. And they actually record like different scenarios like, oh, Bobby just woke up from his nap. I'm going to change him and give him his bottle. And we're going to change him into his day outfit and put him in his stroller. And so it's also they use them with people with memory issues.
Yeah, yeah,
And
that I can see, but mhm. If
anyway,
you guys want to watch a good movie or a good series that has to do with treating a doll like it's a human, you got to check out Servant on Apple. All right, go ahead.
oh yeah, and also remember Lars and the real
Oh,
is it
Lars
the
and the
real
Real
girl?
Girl with
Yeah.
Ryan Gosling. You guys, oh,
Yeah.
that movie will make you cry.
Right? Yeah, that's a great film. Anyway,
Yeah.
so Cheryl, how do I find a hobby if I have none? So this goes back to you saying you have no hobbies. So the experts say join an organization, club, or group where you can try things out. Websites such as meetup.com are a great way to explore different interests, which can then lead to hobbies and allows people to test the waters at no or a low cost, says Weiler. Weiler's this person online who talks about hobbies. Also, Reddit is a huge resource for finding forums where you can interact with people with similar hobbies and ask questions. And if you run into problems, the other thing about meetups are great because if you don't have any of the tools for a hobby, for example, I'll tell you right now, if you were to show up to a knitting group that I was at, not only would I have a bag of a million balls of yarn, I also have all the needles, the tchotchkes, and all the shit you need to get started. You wouldn't have to spend a goddamn penny because I've spent all the pennies for you. So,
Again, I cannot crochet or knit with these hands.
mm, so my next question is what is the most loved hobby? And so survey says the most loved hobby is cooking and baking, hands down. When it
Mm.
comes to the most popular hobbies in the United States, cooking and baking tops the ranking. 42% of the US consumers share this viewpoint in our survey, followed by another 37% of the responders who say their hobby is reading. That's crazy, right? Cooking and baking. And I will tell you that I am a cooking enthusiast. So you all now know that I'm a knitter and a cooker or a
I
cookier.
that's I wish I love to cook and bake.
No,
I
but you know
don't.
what's perfect about you not being a cooker or cookier is you're an eater. So, eating, I got to tell you, eating good foods, eating like at restaurants, I mean, eating out, that can also be a hobby, although that's a more expensive hobby.
Yeah.
So, just kind of heading off into a little bit of an unknown territory. The next thing I looked up was what is the most rare hobby? So I came up with 6 of the most unusual hobbies. The first is ant farming. If you've never heard of a formicarium, you're probably not alone. It is an ant farm and you can buy them and have them in your home. I just need to caution those of you who want to start this as a hobby, don't tip it over. And Cheryl, with hands that don't allow you to knit or crochet, you could become an ant farmer.
Yeah, I guess I could, but no, I pass on that.
Number 2,
I can see me tipping it over. Yeah.
yeah. Cheryl, what do you think the number 2 most unusual hobby is?
Um, Picking your nose. I don't know.
No, it's extreme ironing.
What does that mean as opposed to
It's
just regular ironing?
it's I don't know, but it turns out that like I think it's for people who just love to iron. So it's like all the things you can iron, all of the ways you can iron, all of the different kinds of irons that you can buy. Because remember, in the 1800s, they were these giant stainless steel black things that you'd heat up by the fireplace and then have to put on the clothes with like a pot holder so you to burn the heck out of your hand and then put it back by the fire to warm it up again. So there's all these, and then there's all these sprays that you can use, like linen spray and starch and whatever, lemon water, I don't know, that you can spray on the clothes to scent the clothes. And then there are cultures where women and men still iron the napkins you use, the sheets you put on the bed, and
Oh God.
also clothing that is hung out to dry so that it softens the fabric so it's not as crunchy when you go to put your underwear on because they've been ironed so it's softened the fabric because when you air dry clothes they get real like stiff.
Yeah.
So
Well, I have to say I pass on this one too.
um so the next one is bubble football.
What the heck is that?
It's where they have like bubble machines set up and you play football with all the bubbles, but then it gets really fun because you're all soapy because bubbles are made out of soap. So you get slippery, so it gets harder and harder to like tackle the person with the ball. So anyway, that's bubble football.
Okay, I pass on that.
The next one is cheese rolling.
Huh. Where you roll around in a bunch of cheese?
No, it's where you roll the cheese. You know how cheese comes in a circle? It's the actual act of rolling the cheese.
Okay.
That's better than cutting the cheese.
Oh God.
Okay, the next one is something that I've been very fascinated in. So if any of our listeners do this, I want you guys to reach out to us at Murder and Everything Else and tell us about it. It's geocaching. I've
Hmm.
often been so interested by this. So do you know what geocaching is?
No idea.
Okay. um Geocaching is excuse me. It's a global treasure hunt where people use GPS devices to find hidden containers called caches or caches in specific locations. And they often contain a waterproof container, a logbook, and sometimes a small trinket. And the first one was placed in 2000. And by 2023, there were more than 3 million active caches worldwide.
Hmm.
So, yeah, it's so cool. And and a lot of kids get into it and then their parents do it with them. So you find these coordinates on your GPS map and then you go there and a lot of times they'll use like a little nook in a tree or it's buried under the tree, at this location and you dig it up or whatever. It's like treasure hunting. It's really cool. And kids really love it because if there's a trinket inside, obviously they get to keep it. So I'm not really sure who puts the trinkets back in because if you've taken out the trinket, then who's responsible for putting the next trinket in? And again, that's why I want somebody to reach out. And then also, what if you open it and it's a granola bar and it's been in there for 12 years?
Right. But
You know?
that sounds really fun.
Yeah,
That I mean, I don't know how it works, but yeah.
it really does. And then the last one on the list of the most unusual hobbies is drain cover spotting.
Hmm. I can't even imagine what that's about. So tell us.
It's 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 spotting drain covers like on roadways and
Oh,
on
I didn't know if you were gonna like you have to get a can of paint and spot the drain cover.
oh,
Oh, you're
no,
talking about like
no.
a manhole cover?
Yeah,
Like a
like that.
manhole? Oh.
Isn't that interesting that
Oh,
that would
no,
be a
that's
thing?
ridiculous. Oh,
All right.
I think this website that you went to, they were just like somebody is like totally like laughing behind their computer.
No, it's
There's
real stuff. So
people
anyway,
drive around and what do they do with the drain with the manhole cover? They just take a
remember,
picture of it.
remember drain hole covers. So there are cities, not in our country, but in other countries that are very, very old. They were built by Romans and even civilizations before Romans, like the Greeks and in Asia. So drain holes come with all different shapes and sizes and covers, and some of the covers would be very old. Remember, there are still aqueducts in Europe that are used to carry water from the difference is that the water is now encased like in pipes, but they use the aqueducts still because they're there to carry the water. And some of these aqueducts were placed, I mean, Cheryl, like centuries ago. Like not like 1 century or 2 centuries, right? So
Yeah.
I mean,
I
I imagine that some of these drain hole covers are really cool because they come in all different shapes and sizes and with different markings on them, etc. And by the way, the earliest aqueducts were built around 3000 to 1100. It says BC, but that's crazy. That's crazy. Roman aqueduct systems were built from 312 BCE to 226 CE. That's crazy. That's so
yeah.
old. Anyway, the next thing I want to talk about is which are the least popular hobbies. And here are some of the least common hobbies. The first one is train spotting.
Is that the same where you go around and look for trains?
Yeah, basically. Um, did you know at Dollywood, which is in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, which is the theme park that Dolly Parton built, they
Hmm.
have an old like steam coal burning train that you can ride around the park. And it literally is the kind of train where like a guy is shoveling coal into, a fire that's basically like engineering the whole thing, like making it go. So when you
Hmm.
sit in the train, the ash blows backwards and they do warn you that it might land on you. So you'll have like I mean, I can't imagine it's good for the environment, but which would indicate why those coal trains are no longer in operation. But I think it's pretty cool that she has one that's still working.
Yeah.
Cool, huh? The next one is
Mhm.
quilting. Quilting is one of the least common hobbies.
That
And
surprises me. That it's
really,
one of the least.
well, I would imagine you have to know how to sew on a sewing machine, which I
Which a
feel like
lot
is
of
a
people do.
lost. Yeah, but I feel like it's a lost art now because there used to be a class when you and I were younger in high school called home economics, but nobody has that's not a class anymore.
But
So unless you're homeschooled by somebody who knows how to sew, or you take an active interest in learning how to sew and someone buys you a sewing machine, how are you going to learn how to quilt? And also, I just have to say, I have become the recipient of no less than 6 sewing machines in my life, and every single time I've given them away. So I will never learn how to be a quilter. But that doesn't mean I'm not appreciative of a beautifully made quilt. I love to look at them and I love to sleep under one of them, but I'm not going to make them.
it can't be a lost art, sewing. How are we can't rely on all the manufacturers to sew. There's got to be people out there that are sewing. Anyway,
Yeah, but I feel like it's
that's all I got to say about that.
I feel like it's a dying art. Like fewer and fewer and fewer people are learning how to sew.
Hmm,
I don't
probably,
know.
but that's interesting.
Anyway, the next one is astrology.
That really surprises me. That's one
Really?
of the least. Yeah.
Well, I think it's because you have to own one of those giant telescopes. I mean, that shit's not easy. Oh,
Oh,
wait,
astrology.
is that astronomy?
Yeah, I'm like, wait, what?
Uh,
I thought I had it wrong. No, because
Cheryl,
astrology,
I
I'm
think
like,
it's because it's a commonly held belief that all that zodiac shit is BS.
oh, I believe in it. I think there are
You
some
do?
traits, some basic, everyone's not going to follow their zodiac sign to a T, but I think there are basic traits that seem to be pretty true with people so far. I
That's
mean,
so interesting. Well, the next
s-
one is scrapbooking.
I'm surprised that
So,
that's not still being done. I know it was
well,
really, really popular like 10 years ago, right?
yeah,
But
well, I feel like it was really popular 20 years ago before my, like, right around 25. Again, I feel like it's because all the photographs we have are digital and nobody feels the need to print every picture up anymore.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think that's why.
The next one is home brewing. And I only
Now,
say I think that's on the list because you have to have the space to keep the vats of liquid, and also uh I don't know about you, but I, I think it just is very space, like, I mean, there's a reason why wineries are in completely separate buildings and breweries, because it takes up a lot of space.
well, and I think it's mostly a male hobby. I don't know. If you're a
Yeah.
woman and you brew, well, see, I'm only thinking beer, but I know that one of my friends makes what's that tea? What's that
Kombucha.
tea? Yeah,
Kombucha.
yeah, yeah. She brews kombucha. So I
That shit,
guess
that shit tastes like poo.
you heard it here, folks. Kombucha tastes like poo.
I swear to you, I'm like, it's like if you opened up a jar of apple cider vinegar and threw a raspberry in and handed it to someone and said, "Hey, you want to try my raspberry kombucha?" Bleh. I'm like, yuck.
Uh,
The next one is squash. Did you know that squash has been taken over by pickleball?
oh,
So
well,
nobody's
it's kind
playing,
of
not very many people are playing squash anymore, but apparently everyone's playing pickleball.
now. What is the difference?
I think it's the size of the ball. And I'm not talking about the players. I
oh
don't know. Maybe
gosh,
it has to do with the size of the rackets, or I
the
don't know.
racket or something.
Remember,
I don't know.
isn't squash the one where you have to play indoors, and it would always be in the movies where they'd be in a squash game and it
Isn't
was like
it?
you hit it
A,
against the wall?
that's racquetball.
Oh. Well, I I don't know. I don't know.
Don't come here for any informative educational information, people.
Yeah, right.
It reminds me like of a highbrow thing. Like, isn't it for like the British people?
Then why
Squash.
would they
Is
call
it?
it squash? I
I don't
mean,
know.
literally, it sounds like this, it sounds like a soft drink.
Well,
Isn't there
because
a,
you know,
isn't there a drink called squash?
no,
Or is that
squirt.
squirt? That sounds even
That's
worse.
so gross. I love squirt, but when I think about
That,
it, that's a really awful
that's
name.
what in our house, that when the kids were little, that's what we called diarrhea, squirts.
Oh, nice. Yum. Yum, yum, yum.
Oh my God. All right. The next one is mechanics.
Yeah, I would say that's part of the least common because nobody wants to do that unless they absolutely have to.
Well, and
You don't want to.
also I mean, what kind of like your neighborhood would like run you out if you had a bunch of cars laying around in the front yard?
Yeah. Well, I was thinking, could mechanics apply to something else other than cars?
Yeah,
Because
but
I
you
know
have
that.
to have a bunch of shit laying around. So if you're
Yeah,
like a
yeah. I mean,
toaster repair person, you got about 6 million toasters with parts and shit. If you're a blender repair, but you know what I mean? Like any kind of mechanics requires a bunch of
a lot
shit
of shit.
laying around. Yeah.
A lot of shit laying
And then
around.
you have to have a garage or a barn to keep all that
Yeah,
shit in. It's like never ending.
because I picture greasy shit. You got a lot of greasy shit around.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Oh,
like,
okay.
and then the last one on my list of least popular is astronomy, which
Oh,
I've
okay.
already
Now we're
talked
getting.
about because now you have to buy a $20,000 telescope. And I got to tell you, I'm right here when it comes to telescopes. And I am on board with this being okay. First of all, if you look up at the stars, it's beautiful, but I don't want to name them. I don't want to know what the black hole's doing. I don't want to know what happens when you spend 20 years soaring through space. I don't know about the water on Mars. I think it's great that people are into it. And it probably just indicates how small my brain is and how I can't conceptualize anything, but I just don't get it because the other thing is if stars are balls of gas, that means that they're going to burn out just like the gas from anywhere else burns out, which means tomorrow night there's a whole new set of stars.
Right, right.
So, I don't know, I just don't understand. I feel like it's like this very decadent, like rich, like Richie Rich kind of like hobby where you stand outside all night long and stare at balls of gas, which
Oh,
I got to
remember?
tell you, if you pick your spouse properly, you can spend all night indoors smelling balls of gas.
Oh my God. Yes, Gabe would know about that. Um, no, uh yeah, I think it's for people who just have a fascination with anything that's just not on this earth. Like, would you go if we got to the point where going to another planet, like going to Mars was affordable and it was like you could do it a day trip? Would you be interested?
Well, it's not possible. It's minimum 6 months trip.
But let's just pretend for hypothetical reasons. Are basically my question is, are you interested in going to Mars?
To do what?
I don't did you gotta think of whatever after that.
Okay.
After
If
dot dot
if
dot.
you
You want to
told
go to Mars, dot dot
listen,
dot.
if you told me that if I went to Mars, I could drink this special liquid they found on the surface of Mars. They're giving it away for free and it will make me live an extra 40 years. Then, yes, I would go because remember, that round trip is like a year minimum. So I'm going to take a whole year out of the remaining years that I have on this planet to go to a planet where I probably could burn up either on re-entry or like ejection. Um,
Wait, you want to
so
live
the
an
odds,
extra 40 years? You want to live an extra 40 years? I
yeah,
don't.
because I want to get to know my great grandchildren.
Oh, that's so sweet. It's
I
different when you
mean,
have kids.
I I also, I want to see what I look like when I'm 140.
Oh God, I don't. Not see you when you're 140. I mean, see me when
Thanks a lot, Cheryl. Thanks a lot. All right. Moving on. What are the oldest hobbies? The three oldest
Ooh.
hobbies are coin collecting, hunting, and backgammon.
Hmm.
Isn't that interesting? The
You know
most
what?
yes.
I don't consider I know it's right there in print. I don't consider collecting things a hobby. You're just acquiring shit. For a while, you know those porcelain masks that you hang on the wall? I collected them for a while back when I was in my 20s. I don't consider that a
Oh,
hobby. Just
that is
buying
a
shit.
hobby. In
No, it's
fact,
not.
the
Anyway.
act the participation in hobbying also includes the collecting because if you think about it,
Uh,
hobbying like stamp collecting and trading stamps and buying and selling stamps, that's all a hobby. So hobbies can
What
also
about
involve collecting.
collecting your thoughts? Ooh, that's deep. Anyway,
The most expensive hobbies are yachting, polo, and collecting cars. And I don't mean
collecting cars,
I don't mean the little matchbox cars.
not the hot rods. Remember those
Yeah,
little hot rod cars?
exactly. What hobby is not expensive? So here we are on hobbies. If people don't want to spend money, if you find something often and you find it fun, relaxing, and otherwise enjoyable, it's an example of a hobby. So some hobbies many people enjoy that are cheap and easily accessible include hiking, walking, reading, art, and writing. So, walking and hiking, obviously, you just need some shoes. Reading, you can go to the thrift store and you can buy books at a very, very discounted price. Also, a
Or
lot of
online.
times, yeah, or
You can read
online.
online.
Yep. Art, all you need is a pencil or a pen and a piece of paper, and writing, which is the same. It's very inexpensive and writing is free. And also, a lot of times people call writing journaling, which I have heard therapists say that journaling on a daily basis is very healthy for you.
You know,
Uh,
that is one thing I have no desire to do, but I know it really helps people.
hmm,
I, I, I don't know why. Do you
I,
journal?
I don't,
You
no,
do,
but I
right? A little
kind of,
bit.
I used to for many years, but I do consider this podcast something of a journal. And I had a blog, remember, for many years, but within the last month, I actually deleted the whole thing because some of that shit was cringy. So don't go looking for my blog, folks. You heard it here first.
Oh, you write so
Anyway,
well. You guys, she writes really well. You should have left it.
anyway, listen to this. I am now going to read a list of my hobbies. Okay.
All right.
Um, my hobbies are playing an instrument, knitting, cooking, reading, watching documentaries, whatever shit my kids are interested in, e- eBaying, thrifting, and volunteering. So those are the hobbies
Wow.
that I
It's
actively admit to participating in on a regular basis. Some of the ones that I try have really had to back away from are buying shoes.
you have not backed away from that.
And lately I've really gotten into skincare as being a hobby.
See,
Like
that's not a hobby, Joy.
I think of it as a hobby. I've
No,
really become
I
obsessed with like face masks, serums, masks, scrubs,
listen.
sunscreens, and all kinds of
I
things to put on your skin.
I would like to challenge what is considered a hobby, but we can do that on another episode. Tell everybody what instruments you play. You play more than one.
So, as a child, I played the piano starting at age 5 or 6 until I was about
Wow.
20. And I do still play the
Wow.
piano. I also took guitar lessons as a child, and I also play the violin. And when I was in high school, I also learned how to play the cello, but I don't own a cello. So I actually only play actively now the piano and the violin. So,
That's great.
yeah, so it's fun. Like last night, everybody was out of the house, so I actually played the piano for a little bit. But the dog tends to screech when I play the piano.
your dog starts howling when you play the piano.
Yeah, totally. And also, when I say whatever my kids are interested in, for those of you listening who have children, you have to, even if you're not that into that, you have to feign interest. And inevitably, what ends up happening is it becomes like kind of a pseudo hobby because whether you are interested or not, you learn more than you want to in whatever they're into. And it kind of becomes something that you take on as like a secondary hobby because you
Yeah.
support them in it. You take them to meetups or you take them to meetings or you take, like Girl Scouts or listening to certain kinds of music or playing certain kinds of instruments or being a certain kind of sports player. And so you get involved in it and it becomes something like now I can tell you I know more about the game of soccer and more about the game of volleyball than I ever thought I would know, you know, 30 years
Yeah,
ago.
without them. Well, yeah, without your
Exactly.
kids, the likelihood of you getting into that would probably be pretty slim. So, yeah, that's cool.
Exactly. So here are
Hmm.
some forums for hobbies for those of you listening who either have hobbies and want to develop them more, or who want to develop a hobby, or who don't have any hobbies and are concerned maybe I should get a hobby. Because remember, the other thing I forgot to mention was they do say that when we get older, one of the things that helps us with our memory loss and to obviously like keep our mind sharp is to have things that we engage in doing. Um, to help us, with to keep our memory sharp.
Hmm.
The forums are Network Hobbies, a relaxed forum with a family-oriented environment for sharing and learning about hobbies. Spirit of the Fair, which is a forum for paintball and RC cars and trucks. Reddit, which we did an episode on and which has something out there for everyone. There are subreddits that include homesteading, chainmail artisans, mechanical keyboards, patent gamers, sewing, fishing, woodworking, disc golf, Reddit, cooking. Another one is Reach Out Forums, which is a thread for people to share their hobbies and interests, and hobbytalk.com. But just remember, before you send your kids to these sites, remember to make sure that they are appropriate because, the internet can be a cesspool of information. There'll be 3 posts about the hobby they're into and 1 post that takes them to Pornhub. So just make sure you are watching what they are doing when it comes to searching for hobbies. So anyway, Cheryl, what do you think? Do you
That
think
was
maybe you would participate in developing a hobby at some point?
no. No, you know what? My hobby is doing nothing. My hobby is having a clear schedule because you said it's what you
Cheryl,
enjoy, right? No,
Cheryl.
it's really, I don't really care to read. I don't really like reading. I feel like such a slouch compared to like your list and all the hobbies that are out there that people are partaking in. I really enjoy watching shit. Whether
Cheryl,
it's what?
Cheryl, this podcast is a hobby, and also true
Oh, that's
crime and murder genre and serial killers is indeed a
genre.
hobby. Genre.
No, genre. Um, no, I love watching documentaries. I love watching um true, not just true crime, but true stories. Oh, movies used to be my number one thing to watch, but lately I have been disappointed with any new movie. So when I want to watch a movie, I watch one I've already seen about 20 times because I know I like it. But no, I really like documentaries and true crime. And then what I do have to say it branches off into reading because what will happen is I'm watching something, I will then go and Google it and look into it more and read up on it.
Right.
So that's what I do. And I can go down a rabbit hole. Um,
Yeah.
so that's my hobby, going down rabbit holes.
There you go. That's a good hobby.
Hey, you guys write in and tell us what your hobbies are.
Yeah, tell us what your hobbies are and I would love to hear if you have weird, quirky, crazy hobbies. Well, Cheryl, the fact that you don't have any hobbies is a crime. Straight up crime. But you know what else is a crime?
What's that, Joy?
That we are out of time.
Oh, that is a crime. Well, thank you so much for listening, everyone. And remember, don't complicate your day. All creativity, commentary, and opinions in this podcast belong to Cheryl and Joy. Music composed and mixed by Gabe McKeon. Logo and merch created and managed by Kevin Callan. Podcast editing and advertising by Joy McKeon. Legal representation provided by John Bojezek. Please like, subscribe, follow, and listen. You can listen to us on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. And remember, you can find us on Instagram and YouTube, and you can email us at murderandeverythingelse@gmail.com.
Bye, fishes.